Welcome to English Evidently Podcast, the place where you improve your English every single day simply by listening.
Hello, I'm Jake, and I'm a welder. My workshop is a world of steel, sparks, and intense focus. My day is built not with words, but with beads of molten metal, joining pieces into something strong, useful, and new. Let me walk you through a day seen through the flickering light of my welding hood. The day doesn't begin with an alarm, but with the heavy, metallic groan of the shop's main door rolling up on its steel tracks. A slab of cool morning light cuts into the cavernous space, illuminating 1,000 dust motes dancing in the still air. That first breath is the day's true greeting, the crisp mineral scent of cold steel, the underlying note of gear oil from the machines, and the faint, acrid ghost of yesterday's welding smoke, a smell like spent matches and lightning. This is the smell of potential. Before a single spark can fly, there is the quiet science of the plan. I lay the crisp blueprints flat on my heavy workbench, anchoring their corners with old coffee mugs. My eyes trace the isometric views and cross-sections, my mind already converting two-dimensional lines into the weight and heft of three-dimensional steel. I pull my tape measure and metal scribe from their peg. With a carpenter's square, I check the true 90-degree corners of my tables, the foundation of all my accuracy. Then I go to the raw materials. The I-beams come off the rack with a deep, resonant shudder. Sheets of plate steel lean against the wall with a solid thud as I move them. This is the silent, thoughtful half of the job. I measure twice, mark once with a sharp screech from the carbide scribe, a sound that sets my teeth on edge but speaks of precision. Every clamp is set, every piece aligned. In this hushed hour, with only the sound of my own breathing and the scrape of metal on metal, I am not just a welder, I am an architect laying the first invisible foundation. A perfect joint is born here, in the calm before the storm of sparks. With the steel marked and destined, the quiet contemplation ends. I pull down my face shield, a clear polycarbonate wall, and the workshop transforms from a library into a forge. The first machine to awake is the angle grinder. Its electric scream is deafening as the thin cutting disc bites into the marked line. A torrent of sparks erupts, brilliant white and orange, streaming away from me in a furious molten waterfall that dances and dies on the concrete floor. The smell changes instantly, the sharp, clean scent of seared metal, like the world's largest sparkler. For the thicker plate, I wheel over the oxyacetylene cart. The routine is sacred. Open the tank valves, check the gauges, give the torch handles a gentle purge. I strike the sparker, a decisive hiss pop, and a small adjusting flame blooms. I dial in the oxygen until the blue inner cone becomes a sharp, silent needle. This is the true cutting flame, over 3,000 degrees Celsius. When I touch it to the steel's edge, the metal doesn't just melt, it oxidizes and blows away in a shower of dazzling molten slag, leaving a clean kerf cut behind. The cut piece falls with a heavy, definitive clang, its severed edge glowing a furious cherry red, pulsating with heat. Now comes the brute force poetry of shaping. I maneuver a long sheet of steel into the hydraulic press brake. With a foot pedal, I activate it. The machine doesn't roar, it groans, a deep hydraulic strain of immense power. The ram descends with unavoidable force, pressing the steel against a precise die. In one smooth, terrifying motion, the flat, stubborn plane is transformed into a perfect, sharp-angled trough. I release the pedal, and the ram retracts. The new shape is unyielding, permanent. Sometimes, to relieve internal stresses, I quench a hot piece. The sizzling, violent eruption of steam when it hits the water tank is a period at the end of a sentence. The symphony is one of controlled violence, screaming, hissing, groaning and sizzling. And from this beautiful chaos emerge the clean, sharp, obedient pieces of the puzzle, ready to be united. This is the moment of creation, the silent conversation inside a storm of light. I gather my gear, the welders hum a low promise of power, the ground clamp biting onto the work table with a metallic teeth. I shrug into my leathers, the weight familiar and reassuring, and pull on thick gauntlets that smell of smoke and sweat. Finally, I lower my auto-darkening hood. The bright world vanishes, replaced by a dim, green-tinted twilight. I position the tungsten electrode or the MIG gun tip an inch from the joint. I take a steadying breath and strike the arc. Instantly, my universe contracts to a circle the size of a coin. Inside my hood, there is nothing but that tiny, incandescent pool of molten metal, brighter than the sun, swimming in a cyan-blue aura of superheated gas. The sound is a relentless, crisp crackle, the sound of electricity tearing through air to become liquid steel. My entire world is this bubble of fury. My hands, guided by muscle memory and a keen eye through the lens, must perform a delicate dance, maintaining the exact angle, moving at the perfect, consistent travel speed, gently weaving or pushing the filler rod into the leading edge of the puddle. The heat is a physical pressure against my chest, soaking through the leather. I am not just holding a tool, I am shepherding a miniature star, using its fierce energy to make two separate pieces of the earth forget they were ever apart. The molecules mingle, fuse, and crystallize into a bond stronger than the parent metal. When I break the arc by flicking my wrist, the afterimage burns in my vision. I lift my hood. Light and sound rush in a flood. Before me, the weld bead glows a mesmerizing sunset orange, sizzling softly as it cools, the slag crust blackening over the silver. In that quieting moment, there is a profound stillness. I have drawn a line of pure, solid connection where there was only a gap. The violence is over, and the union is complete. The fresh weld, now cooled to a rough charcoal gray, is a testament to raw strength, but not to finish. It is cloaked in a brittle volcanic crust of slag. The artistry now shifts from fusion to revelation. I select a grinding disc, a flat, coarse wheel designed for serious material removal, and lock it onto the angle grinder. Pulling my face shield down, I trigger the tool. Its scream is higher, more aggressive than the cutter's, a sustained, angry whine. I bring the spinning edge to the weld bead. The contact unleashes a torrent, not the long, flowing sparks of cutting, but a furious, concentrated blizzard of brilliant white-hot particles that spray directly back at me, deflecting off my shield and leathers with a sound like metallic rain. My focus is absolute. I work the grinder back and forth along the bead's length, following the contour of the underlying joint, removing the slag and excess weld material. The ugly black crust gives way to a dull silvery streak. Then I change tools. I swap the grinding disc for a flap disc, a wheel of layered sandpaper flaps. The sound softens to a fierce sanding hiss. This is for finesse. I smooth the rough grind marks, blending the weld seamlessly into the parent metal. The steel grows warm under my hand again from the friction. Slowly, with each pass, the true form of the weld emerges. It is no longer a blob, but a smooth, consistent ripple, a tiny fossilized topography of my own making. I shut off the grinder, and in the ringing silence I pull off a glove. Running my bare fingertips over the joint, I feel for any high spot, any ridge. The surface is cool, smooth, and continuous. The evidence of the violent arc is gone, hidden beneath a flawless finish. The strength remains, but now it is dressed in the silent, unassuming perfection of skilled work. This is the welder's signature, a bond so clean it pretends it was never made. With a collection of smooth and finished components around me, the project ceases to be a collection of parts and begins its metamorphosis into a single being. This phase is a blend of heavy lifting and delicate alignment. I call upon the overhead hoist, its motor whining as it lifts a major subassembly, a welded frame or a heavy plate. The chain clinks with a sound like old heavy coins as I guide the piece through the air, maneuvering it with gentle pulls into position beside its mate. This is where the vision on the blueprint becomes tangible in 3 dimensions. I clamp the massive pieces together with heavy-duty C-clamps and locking pliers, their screws groaning under the strain of pulling true. I check for square with my largest steel carpenter's square, tapping adjustments with a dead-blow mallet, a thud, thud, thud that resonates through the steel. When the alignment is perfect, I make the critical tack welds. These are small, strategic dots of weld, just enough to hold the entire universe of the project in its perfect intended geometry. They are the punctuation marks in the sentence of assembly. Stepping back, I finally see it. The skeletal framework of a gate, the robust chassis of a piece of farm equipment, the functional form of an industrial rack. The final welds on these major joints are longer, more intense burns. I settle in, my body braced, as I run a continuous penetrating bead along a seam that will bear real weight and stress. The heat soaks into the entire structure. When I finish and the last arc breaks, I lower my hood. Before me stands something that did not exist this morning. The separate pieces of stock, which I measured, cut, shaped, and ground, are now a coherent, functional whole. The puzzle isn't just solved, it has been forged into a new reality. This moment, seeing the completed form stand solid and true under the shop lights, is the silent, powerful reward for all the noise and fire that came before. As the last echoing crackle of the arc fades, a profound and heavy silence reclaims the workshop. I kill the main power to the welder, and its deep electrical hum dwindles to nothing. The only sounds now are the music of cooling metal, a gentle, random ping, and a soft, contracting tink from the project as it surrenders its fierce heat to the cool air of the shop. Waves of warmth still radiate from the fresh welds, bending the light above them. This is the time for the critical eye. I take my measuring tape and check key dimensions against the blueprint, ensuring nothing has shifted or pulled out of true during the intense heat of final assembly. I lay my spirit level along critical surfaces, watching the bubble settle perfectly within its lines. But my most trusted tool is my hand. I pull off my glove and run my bare fingertips along every weld seam I can reach. I am feeling for what my eyes might miss, a slight undercut, a tiny porosity pit, a ripple that isn't smooth. The steel is still warm, almost alive under my touch. Satisfied, I begin the final ritual of closure. I sweep the concrete floor in long, steady strokes. The broom gathers the day's physical history, piles of glittering, curly metal shavings from the lathe, gritty black slag crumbs, the dust of 100 grinding discs, and the fine metallic snow of spent welding wire. I coil hoses and hang my torch on its hook. The fatigue I feel is deep and solid, settled into the muscles of my shoulders and forearms. The scent of ozone, hot iron, and my own sweat is baked into my clothes, a badge of the day's work. I walk to the main door, flip off the bank of lights, and stand for a moment in the gloom. My project sits in the center of the floor, a dark, sturdy silhouette against the lesser dark. I created that. I took indifferent pieces of the earth and with geometry, fire, and force of will convinced them to become something new, something strong, something useful. With a final echoing crash, I roll the heavy door down and lock it. The shop and its new occupant are left in the dark, holding their warmth and their silence. I walk to my truck, the cool evening air a relief, carrying with me the quiet certainty of a day spent building, not just working.